When it comes to ranking roller coasters, to me one of the most important things is the first drop. This is usually the big first moment of the ride and typically sets the energy for the rest of the ride too. I typically look for a drop that lasts a long time and provides great airtime of some sorts, whether it be ejector or a sustained floater. Something I also like to look for is the transition from negative to positive G-forces, and of course if it includes laterals. In this video I'm going to be ranking my top 25 favorite first drops. And of course a few disclaimers before we start. One, I'm really only counting the first quote-unquote big drop on coasters. Like for example, Pantheon at Busch Gardens Williamsburg has the drop a little bit into the ride, but I still count it as the first drop because it's really the only big one on the ride. Two, I haven't ridden every coaster out there, so don't be like, but where's this ride? In the comments. And three, of course this is my opinion, so if your favorite ride isn't on here, that's cool because not everyone is supposed to have the same exact opinions. Also, when ranking these drops, I'm mainly basing the experience off the back row rides, and pretty much that goes for every single drop on this list with the exception of maybe one or two. So when I'm talking about these drops, it's basically talking about the back row only. However, before I get to the actual top 25, I'd like to list a few honorable mentions, starting with Wooden Warrior at GWAZI. It may only have a puny drop height of 35 feet, but for whatever reason, this drop gives ejector airtime the entire way down, and it's strong ejector too. It by no means has an amazing drop, but I just wanted to mention it with its crazy power compared to its size. King Dakar on Top Thrill Dragster features some really crazy drops, however they can be really hit or miss. Dragster did have a little better airtime since there's no trim at the top, however both give crazy ejector airtime depending on how fast you go over the tower, and of course the spiral down is very cool and a very fun sensation. Banshee at Kings Island has a much better drop than I anticipated. The back row offers some whip, laterals, and even a bit of floater airtime. Premier Skyrocket 2s feature a crazy drop in the back car with ejector airtime and then that crazy 180-degree twist down, slamming you into the seat with positive Gs. These drops are accentuated with the lap bar only versions also. Storm Runner at Hershey Park features a large 180-foot vertical drop, which once again gives some awesome sustained ejector airtime down a portion of the drop. Starting out the top 25 is Mind Blower at Fun Spot Kissimmee. This drop almost feels like it's too steep for how small the ride is. You come off the lift, go through a super tight turn, and then get absolutely yanked over the drop. This drop feels way larger than 80 feet, and honestly it feels closer to more like 120 feet. I also really like the feel of the wooden track in the valley. While the rest of Mind Blower has rough patches, the bottom of the drop features that wooden bite and adds onto the intensity a little while not being super rough. Number 24 is the world's steepest drop at 121.5 degrees. TMNT Shellraiser at Nick Universe in the American Dream Mall. This drop is absolutely terrifying with the dive coaster element where the whole lift is shaking and the extreme ejector airtime as you fall under yourself into a super forceful valley. It surely makes for one of the world's best drops. There's also a terrifying near miss with the adjacent spinning coaster, Shredder, and its first drop. Number 3 is the Coney Island Cyclone at Luna Park in Brooklyn, New York. This is another small drop at only 75 feet, however the way it crests from not steep to a nearly 60-degree angle in a few feet makes this drop absolutely insane. If you're lucky enough to get a back row ride on the Cyclone, brace for the drop. Due to the train's buzz bar style restraints, you will quite literally be standing on the first drop due to the insane ejector airtime. I did not expect the ride to be this good to begin with, and discovering how amazing the drop in the back blew me away. Number 22, Apollo's Chariot at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. While Apollo is certainly a fun B&M hyper, it is nowhere near the best one. However, because of this ride's pre-drop, the drop in the back row is pretty good, and honestly, in my opinion, the best element on the ride. The transition from the straight track to the drop gives a nice pop of weak ejector airtime, and then you get some good floater airtime down the rest of the 200-foot drop into the unique terrain of Busch Gardens Williamsburg. Number 21 is Lightning Rod at Dollywood. To clarify, I have not ridden Lightning Rod since the Steel Retrack, and when I rode it, it was 2019, so it wasn't running super fast either. However, the ride gives really great ejector airtime in the back row, and you get some speed going into it, so the drop is accentuated even more. I was expecting more out of it, however, what I got was still great. Right before you transition to the valley, the airtime starts becoming ejector, and then flying under the track that crosses over the drop gives an amazing head chopper effect. Also, I have to add that I love the texture of the wooden lightning rod. It's smooth, but with that wooden bite to it. Number 20, the large B&M dive drops. No, not you. Griffin and Sheikah at the Bush Parks feature awesome vertical drops with amazing sustained flow to airtime the entire way down. Also, not to mention, the visual of looking down the drop in the front row is absolutely awesome, and honestly, I would even sacrifice a back row ride just to get that visual. Number 19 are the barrel roll down drops on the RMC coasters, specifically Twisted Timbers and Storm Chaser, because I've not really ridden Medusa yet or even been out of the country for any theme parks. These drops really surprise me with how powerful they are. In the front row, you slowly row through, getting some awesome hang time. However, in the back row, you get violently whipped down the drop with a very strong moment of hang time and air time. The visual of rapidly rotating around the structure is also really awesome, and might I add that these aren't even the best barrel roll down drops. That goes to Iron GWAZIs. However, that is not the first drop, so I will not be counting it on this list. Number 18 is Steel Force at Dorney Park. Because of the way Morgan shapes their drops, this gives a double pop of airtime in the back row. You get some weak floater airtime cresting the top of the lift, and then you get a short stretch section and then fly to your seat with very strong floater airtime down the 200-foot drop. Due to the simple lap bars of this ride, you can really feel the strong airtime going the entire way down, and it's even borderline ejector. It basically feels like one of the newer B&M hyper drops. Number 17 is the Voyage at Holiday World. This drop is almost like a B&M hyper drop, but on a smaller scale and wooden. In the back row, you'll get some very strong floater airtime as you crest the lift hill and then slam down into the valley and feel that well-maintained Voyage track. Not only that, but this lift/drop gives an amazing view of the surrounding terrain of Holiday World with all the trees and hills. Number 16 is Nitro at Six Flags Great Adventure. Nitro has a fantastic drop with sustained floater airtime the entire way down, along with a very forceful valley. This drop also lasts a very long time and feels much taller than 215 feet. B&M really seems to know how to make these drops as sustained and long feeling as possible. Next up is another B&M hyper with Candymonium at Hershey Park. While I like Nitro a lot more than Candymonium ride-wise, Candy does have the better drop of the two. It's essentially the same as Nitro's, but a little stronger, and the transition from negative to positive G-forces is honestly funny to me because you really feel yourself slam down into the seat, and if you have a tad bit of room with your lap bar, you will 100% see this. And number 14 is another B&M hyper, being Diamondback at Kings Island. This is another massive 215-foot drop, but with the strongest floater airtime out of the three I've mentioned so far. Diamondback also has a tight valley that provides nice positive Gs and basically feels like the modern version of Nitro's. And number 13, I swear to God this is the last B&M hyper, Mako at SeaWorld Orlando. Mako has the best drop of any of the B&M hypers in my opinion because it absolutely ejects you out of your seat if you're in the back row. After getting ejector airtime, you get strong floater the entire way down and then hit the tightest valley of all the B&M hypers, getting slammed with positive Gs. Number 12, Intimidator 305 at King's Dominion. This is the first of the 3 Gigas to make this list. I-305 features a massive 300-foot drop with very strong sustained ejector airtime. However, the drop feels like it's much shorter than 300 feet since the valley starts way sooner than it should on other coasters. However, if you've heard anything about I-305, this drop will put you into one of the most intense moments on any coaster with a violent twist into the famous blackout turn. The combination of these two elements really helps to be one of the most intense drops on any coaster ever built. Number 11, Tennessee Tornado at Dollywood. Now, you may be scratching your head at this because not many people really talk about this drop. However, this is a way more intense drop than anyone I know was expecting. After whipping around a tight turn coming off the lift, you barrel down this steep drop through a tunnel in the mountain, getting sustained ejector airtime the entire way down with a really terrifying head chopper. After that, you shoot up into a forceful vertical loop, packing on the positive Gs in the valley. This drop really surprised me, as I mentioned before, and honestly, I think more people need to talk about this. Definitely make sure you ride in the second to back on this arrow looping masterpiece. Starting in the top 10 is Millennium Force at Cedar Point. The world's first Giga Coaster has a fantastic 300-foot drop with strong, sustained floater airtime the entire way down, and then once transitioning to the valley, it slams you with some positive Gs, while also giving one of the best views on any coaster. Heading across the peninsula for number 9 is Maverick. This drop is the definition of size does not matter. In any row, you'll be absolutely thrown over the drop, but the back row gives some of the strongest ejector airtime ever. The visual of riding in the back and having the train in front of you just disappear is absolutely terrifying. When heading into the valley, you get a burst of strong positive Gs and laterals and flying between some rockwork. Honestly, I think this ride has the closest experience to jumping off a cliff. Number 8 is Pantheon at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. Pantheon's 180-foot beyond vertical drop is truly one of the best elements on any coaster around. Sitting in the back row, this drop feels like it lasts forever and gives sustained ejector airtime the entire way down. The drop also gives a fantastic view of the Rhine River and the valley below, and even uses the terrain of Busch Gardens, Williamsburg to its advantage, just like a polished chariot. Number 7 is Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point. This massive 200-foot drop gives awesome sustained ejector airtime and hits a max vertical angle of 90 degrees. Not only is the drop absolutely amazing, but it's similar to Millennium Force, where it gives an amazing view being right on the Lake Erie shore. Number 6, the drop that is basically ever so slightly larger and steeper version of Steel Vengeance's, Iron GWAZI. This drop is slightly more powerful than Steel Vengeance and feels a tad bit longer. Also, not to mention the crazy head chopper on this drop with the structure of the ride makes it absolutely terrifying, and something that Steel Vengeance does not offer. It's one hell of a way to kick off one of my favorite coasters ever built. Now for the top 5 drops, where all of these drops feel like you're going to get absolutely yeeted out of the train. Number 5, Gale Force at Castaway Cove. This drop might just have the strongest airtime out of any drop in the world. Those restraints are holding on to you for dear life as you get completely thrown out of your seat. The best part is, you're already getting strong floater airtime as you twist at the top hat, then you go over the crest and get an even stronger burst of sustained ejector airtime that just gets even stronger as it goes down the drop. It's one of the oddest sensations I've ever felt on a coaster, and now, with the ride's double cycle, you get to experience this twice and slightly faster the second time around, which is honestly even more terrifying. Number 4, Jersey Devil Coaster at Six Flags Great Adventure. Many people aren't the biggest fan of this ride, however, most people can agree that the drop is absolutely insane. If you're in the back row, the train starts speeding up before the last car even crests the lift, so you get absolutely ripped down the drop with strong ejector airtime. The drop, for whatever reason, feels larger than it actually is, which I won't complain at all. Number 3, Orion at Kings Island. This is the only B&M Giga I've been on so far, and I really hope I get on the other two sometime soon. This drop feels like it lasts an eternity as you fly out of your seat with strong floater airtime the entire 300-foot drop. I love how the beginning of the drop, it starts out with a strong pop of ejector airtime, and then sustains the floater airtime the entire way down as long as possible due to the shaping of the drop. B&M seems to have really perfected these drops. Number 2, and probably the most terrifying drop ever, SKYRUSH at Hershey Park. SKYRUSH has some of the strongest ejector airtime on Earth, and it starts right off with an insane drop showcasing that airtime. The valley afterward crushes you with positive G-forces, and unknowing riders will be whipped to the side with crazy laterals. The drop is definitely not for the weak. And coming in at number 1 for my favorite drop on any coaster is El Toro at Six Flags Great Adventure. I think Intamin really crafted the perfect first drop for El Toro, along with T-Express at Everland in Korea, but honestly, I've never been there and probably won't anytime soon, so I can't really say. The anticipation begins as pretty much everyone stares down on the drop, coming up the lift and slowly making their way around the turn. The train then absolutely rips down the drop, and not only does the train rip down the drop, it rips ass down the drop. This gives one of the strongest moments of sustained ejector airtime down the 170-foot, 72-degree drop. The valley then slams you with positive Gs and that wood coaster feeling, as 99% of the people will then lower their hands or duck going under the ride structure, getting a super claustrophobic near miss as you're surrounded by wooden supports. Also, if you've ever had the absolute pleasure of riding this ride in boost mode, that drop is like SKYRUSH's drop, where the airtime is almost twice as strong. Thanks for watching, everybody. Comment some of your favorite first drops down below, and of course, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe for more theme park content just like this, and more, of course. Once again, thanks for watching, everybody, and I really hope to see you in the next video.